Kornercast podcast here on casterscorner.com. I'm your host, Khalil. And we took a break last week. It's summer. We were away and had a podcast to edit. And just was like, you know what? Just going to take a week off after a year of podcasts, which I don't think I missed any. I think we were late one day, but I don't think we actually took a week off. So I took a break. And within that break, a couple things happened. The Nacel Company put out the next round of the movies that made us. Looking at Pretty Woman, Jurassic Park, Forrest Gump, and Back to the Future. And I was watching that over my break, and the opportunity came up between a toy store near you and the new season of movies that made us, and then them putting out all the new stuff between Silverhawks and another season of the toys that made us. And I had the opportunity to talk to one of the people behind the show. And so Rich Mayerik came on the show. I first was introduced to him in a San Diego Comic-Con panel that we talk about a little bit, and realized that the guys on the stage were like the guys in the audience, or we had things in common between Amazon and eBay boxes showing up daily at our houses or our work. And there's just this passion, I think, passion for the medium and passion for the culture. And it's been really great to get to know Rich and talk to him and hear about the fun projects they're going. So we spent a lot of time focusing on what they've done and what's hopefully coming, and some of the ideas that they kind of put forth with Cabbage Patch Dolls and superheroes for the toys that made us, and looking for angles to kind of do that. And then we talked a little bit about the production of a toy store near you, which I think has been an inspirational. You'll hear me say it's very inspirational to see them kind of during the pandemic be able to put this stuff together. So much so that, we started our YouTube channel on a daily posting of toys. So it is in part thanks to them. So it was really great to have this conversation with Rich for sure, and just talk about that. You can find everything at the nacelcompany.com, and then you can find all their social media. They've got multiples from the Nacel Company itself, and then they've got one for the toys that made us, to Toys Nacel. Toys, ToysNacelle on Instagram, and you can just follow them through all of those things, and support them. And one of the big things is they want to produce more shows for us, and part of that is the idea of we need to continue to watch them on these platforms. If you could watch Captain America 20 times, why not throw on Toys That Made Us, leave it on the background while you're working. It's a great thing. You pick up on different things here and there. And I certainly want to see more from them. They have done a great job kind of capturing this world that we live in and giving credit, as we said in the podcast, to the unsung heroes that kind of do all the work behind the scenes and don't always get the credit. And it's been great to see the toy creators and designers get that notoriety, and get those stories out of telling how the things that kind of shaped our childhood shaped in some ways their adulthood and their careers. So it's been great to all that. So we, it's a shorter podcast, it's about half an hour, but we get into all that stuff. And so the bottom line is just support them. Go out, watch the shows, go on Amazon, go on Netflix, go on YouTube, watch all their shows, the toys, the stores, the toy store near you, the toys that made us, the movies that made us, and follow them, support them, and do all that. And they've got a lot more projects too. They've got some podcasts going, and there was some news that they might be working on some work with Silverhawks, and there's a lot coming. So I'm very excited to see all that happen. So that's about it. Our toy of the day, misnumbered as it is, continues to go. We will hit 365 sometime early December. And I'm planning on doing a whole podcast about it. So hopefully you'll enjoy that, of the making of 365. And follow us. We are at Caster's Corner on all social media. Check out here. You're here. So subscribe, rate, review, and share it out. And subscribe to the YouTube channel, of course, for daily content from us. And yeah, that's all I got. It's a Monday night. It's late. And ready to get going with podcasts again. We've got some fun guests coming up. We've got a great show with Jesse and DJ and all that. So without further ado, it is myself. It's Rich Mayerik from the Nacel Company, talking all things that made us and are near us. Enjoy, everybody. On my Zoom and my Zoom. So,
fantastic. I'm such a. I think it took me at least like
recording
4 months
in progress.
Sorry.
before I realized that you could do split track audio on Zoom.
Yeah. No, it's great. It's to be able to do everything with it. And
what did we ever do without it?
I don't know. I really don't. I have no idea. It's one of those things where, I'm happy that the world caught up with it. Because it's like, oh, this makes this kind of communication so much easier. But like, I don't want people not to go back to go away from it. I'm like, no, it's here. Let's keep using it. So
exactly.
It's one of those things where it's like, this is fun for me because it's one of those moments where I know you because I was in a Comic-Con panel watching you on stage.
Oh man,
talking about being like a collector and nerd and geek like me, and so I was like, this is a little surreal at the moment. So it's fun.
Well, thank you, man. It's still surreal for me every day. If that makes you feel any better.
Yeah, and it feels like so long ago because like it was Comic-Con 19, right? Like
which feels like we did a panel in 2018 and a panel on 2019.
Yeah.
And they both feel like an absolute eternity ago. It's insane.
And it's weird too because it feels like to me that like we don't get like I'm used to like news coming up, like we get news all the time, like it's a constant flow of like news, but that San Diego kind of like announcement dump from everybody where it's like you get everything, you get trailers, you get interviews, you get panels, you get all this stuff, and like we don't get that. It doesn't feel like we get as much because it's so spaced out, or the access to like to the stuff that you guys are doing. We see it on Twitter, we see it on Instagram and Facebook, but it doesn't feel as concentrated or I hate to say as exciting because you don't have that like season, like that convention season.
And we've kind of held off on some stuff that we normally would. I mean, like, had there been a Comic-Con this year, we would have had our panel and we would have announced some pretty, bonkers stuff that's coming up. But it's one of those things where, there's a lot of strategic weight to these announcements and nothing against Comic-Con at home, right? Because I mean, God bless them. They're doing the best they can with the circumstances. And I think they've done a great job both years, but there's things that we just don't want to put out there into the public sphere, order and have them kind of just like fall on a less than present audience. So right. It's like we have to now kind of like hold back on some of this stuff till we can actually have the avenue and venue that we want to announce it all. So hopefully, fingers crossed, knock on wood, maybe this Thanksgiving down in San Diego, we'll do a panel and we'll announce some stuff. But yeah, it's been tough to adjust. It's been definitely tough to adjust.
Well, and like you said, you want the excitement, you want the present audience where it's like I just remember the whole day, everybody talking at that panel going, oh, what movies are they going to do for the movies that made us? Like, right. What are they going to do with that? Like, oh, what else could we do? And like the buzz of like what, like walking out of that panel room that day was like, well, what other toy lines can they do? Like that, because there was a lot of questions, like I think in the audience going, well, do Thundercats. And Brian was like, it was good, but like there's not the narrative that you get with He-Man or you get with Transformers or
exactly.
And you guys know it because you guys have done the research on it. So you guys would know better in some ways than we would. But like the buzz that kind of comes out of that and that continued kind of like carryover. Like you guys did a Comic-Con home panel last year, I think, with Vonner.
Yep.
And I caught it like a couple weeks later. And I'm like, this is a great panel. Like there's a lot of great stuff here, but I didn't hear as much buzz about it. Like
how many people watched it? Because
right.
I mean, like people want to have some sort of Comic-Con experience, but when it comes to brass tacks, like how many people are actually in front of their computers all weekend for Comic-Con at home? And I think a lot of it, unfortunately, just has to do with Zoom fatigue. You know, people have been spending 2 years, a year and a half, feels like 2 years, you know, in front of their computers on Zooms. And it's great. As great as all these panels and the content is, it's a lot to ask of people to do the same thing they do 5 days a week for work now on their weekends as like a recreational sort of thing. And I get it. You know, I totally get it. There were panels this past year in Comic-Con at home that I had 10 of them that I bookmarked that I was really excited to see. And it took a lot for me to actually sit down and watch most of them just because it was just like, oh God, okay. All right.
Well, yeah. And it's con season, right? So it's like you're at the con. That's what you have to do.
So you have to do, yeah.
You're at home. You got to do the laundry. You got to take the dog out. Somebody calls on the phone. Like you're distracted. You don't have that same kind of attention span that you would if you were focused. Because like I watched Suicide Squad last night and I got an hour into it and I took a break. I watched another half hour and then I got home from work tonight and I finished the movie and I'm like, this wasn't it was a good movie, but it wasn't a great experience. Like, it's.
And do you think you would have had a better experience watching that if you were in a theater?
Yeah. Oh yeah. 100%.
Yeah.
Would have been much more intense.
I feel the same way. I mean, look, I have a gazillion DVDs and Blu-rays. Lord knows I watch enough movies at home, but for stuff that I haven't seen yet, you know, that first experience, I wanted to be in a theater if all possible. I went to go to the City Walk AMC the other night just to go see The Green Knight because I knew that was going to be a movie that it was going to warrant a theatrical experience. And like, if you want to go to a movie and you're a little still worried about going to a movie, I recommend going to the 10 o'clock shows on Tuesdays because I think there were 2 other people in the theater period. But afterwards, it was just like, yep, there was no way I would have gotten the same experience watching this movie had I just watched it at home.
I've heard great things about that movie. So
it's gorgeous.
I gotta check it out. But I will say this, it does afford, and this is a nice little segue. It does afford for you guys to do projects like a Toy Store near you.
Sure.
What was that experience like for you guys?
I will say that, and I mean this, you know, in the most sincere, not company speak manner possible. It's probably one of the most rewarding things that I've done so far in my entire career. And again, it was something that was completely born out of just, you know, Brian and I looking at the state of things in the early days of COVID, because we'd kind of tossed around an idea to do kind of like a travel-like show before. And, you know, things, you get busy, other things pop up and, you know, ideas just kind of get put on the back burner and, you know, it was always something there. But once the, you know, pandemic hit and, you know, we go to our local toy stores in Burbank on a weekly basis. We had a Blast in the Past and Black Hat and all these stores. And, you know, it's just like, these are places that are near and dear to my heart. You know, Lord knows I had a bunch of them back in Chicago where I grew up that I would go to visit every time I went home to visit my family. So it was just like the you know, realization that this was going to hit stores like that harder than a lot of other stores and what we could do, like, what can we do to kind of help these stores out, help keep them on the map, maybe bring awareness to people that wouldn't otherwise know that they were there and, you know, just do something to just kind of get them through. And that's kind of how it all started out, is just that was the formulation of the idea. And then talking to the stores and kind of like getting them on board and explaining the concept and the premise, it just became such an organic thing. Like they all got it right away and they all kind of became like, it wasn't, I mean, like, obviously it's a process, you know, a lot of these store owners, you know, they're not cinematographers and they're not directors. And, you know, like this was their first time doing anything like this, but they all caught on so quick and they all kind of understood what we were trying to do. And yeah, it was just such a rewarding process to kind of see them see all their kind of creative inspiration come through, because it's each one has its own story. Each one is very unique, and it's been a joy to watch those stories come to life.
Yeah, I think at least one per season, at least one store per season, I felt a connection to, or like I wish that store was in my town. And I've reached out to at least one per season to say, hey, let us know if we can help promote either on the podcast if you want to come on. Their schedules have all been super busy. But if you want to come on the podcast, if you want to talk about your stuff, if you want to do that, and if I see anything in the back of any of the shots that I want, I will be ordering from you guys. And it's been fun trying to find those connections in every season of like something that really like strikes you, and kind of there's a kinship that I think is missing in the collecting community because there's so much competition.
Yeah,
like we're all striving to kind of get that thing,
and it's gotten so cutthroat lately.
Yeah.
Like people are just like, it's like they've gotten away from that sense that this is a community, like on every regard, and just this idea that I need to get it before everybody else, and if I do, then in your face and all that jazz. Like it's just like that. Just stuff needs to go away because it's not good for the hobby.
No, it isn't, and it. I think a lot of us are working towards this idea of community, and of helping everybody out. And it really gives us a little bit of a black eye in some cases where it's like, oh, they're the ones that are going to be annoying, or they're the ones that are going to be like pushy, or they're the ones that are going to be rude. And it's like, no, we kind of just like toys, and we like our childhood, and we want to relive it, and we want to have fun with this stuff. And how can we help each other to do better? So, and God, if I can get a road trip going one day, I'd like to hit a few of these places. There's one, the Leicester one in England was like, that's like
Joseph Hand, a fantastic human being. Love that dude.
Yeah. And the shop itself, like all the stuff he has in there, I'm like, God, I would sell a house just to buy everything that's in that store. Like it's just, it's amazing. Have you ever been to the one in Chicago personally for this season?
I have been to I've been to Bric-a-Brac and Smash Toys several times. We have one coming up in season 4 that's also in Chicago.
Okay.
So those are stores. Like, I grew up in Northwest Indiana, like right outside Chicago, and I moved out to LA in 2007. But a lot of these stores popped up after I'd already moved out to LA, but my sister still lives out there, and she's a big nerd like me, so she'd send me these updates like, hey, there's a store you should check out next time you're home. So it became a ritual. Every time I visit my folks back home over the holidays and whatnot, I would go and shop at all of these stores, and I would always have to bring an extra suitcase home because of all the stuff that I would pick up while I was visiting family.
I found one once up in upstate New York. I had a GPS for it and I couldn't find it. And it turned out to be a like double sized, like, or 4-car garage in the back of somebody's house. But it had like mask. It had like sealed 70s, Star Wars stuff. Like it was one of those places that you're like, all right, everybody, I'm going in here. Here's the address. If you don't hear from me in half an hour, send the police. But it was just like this treasure trove of stuff, and it's fun to kind of find these places. And I think the show captures some of that magic of finding some of the like the offbeat places, to kind of frequent that stuff. It was absolutely fun to watch
because there's so many out there. I mean, like it took me I don't know how many years that I was out here in Los Angeles already before I was able to give it over to Kokomo for the first time. Mm-hmm. And I remember walking into that store for the first time and my jaw just hitting the floor, because it's just like, it's so overwhelming. You just don't expect it. And I mean, like the store is impressive. Todd and Amber, the owners, are a delight. It's just, it is truly a destination location,
And and the show's going to continue, right? I know that you guys had said that you were shooting a ton and releasing them as they were ready. So there is a season 4 on the horizon.
Correct. We're working on season 4 as we speak. And, we plan on keeping it going as long as, we have stores that have committed to having episodes made. And that's, and again, the whole thing was a learning experience. We'd never done a show that didn't directly involve us with a production crew in a location, for the most part, shooting, the stuff ourselves and, having, an on-site field producer and all that jazz. So like being able to produce a show like this one with the quality that we, pride ourselves on, and basically putting all of that responsibility on the store owners, we knew it was going to be, something that we'd never done before, but it's worked out beautifully. And again, all the credit in the world to the stores who have, helped us produce these episodes, because they've gone above and beyond. But, it's a lengthier process than we initially imagined. So, these things take time to get these episodes to where we need them to go. But yeah, we are diligently working on them as hard as we can and as fast as we can.
I think it's inspiring too, a little bit, the idea of the way, because I think I talked to Brian right before the Billy Galaxy episode, kind of that first season aired. And I remember thinking, like, initially watching, the toys that made us, and thinking, God, this is really well produced. You see the production value in the interviews with the creators, and the, because I've been trying to pay attention to like the editing stuff and seeing how you guys make cuts and stuff like that. And it was, from going from that to a toy store near you, it felt very seamless. But then hearing how you guys did it from a person who's like producing this out of his house, like a podcast and daily videos out of his house, it was a little bit of inspiring. I think that's around the time where I started my daily trend to do 365 videos in a year. And it's like, yeah, like it's an inspiration to see that, to say, okay, if you guys can do it, you guys are professionals, and you're giving people that aren't professionals the tools to do it. It allows us to kind of also say, well, maybe we can stretch a little bit. Maybe we can be a little bit more part of a community and help out too, and talk about stuff. And it's been fun to watch it kind of grow, and see how you guys have produced the hell out of it, is the only way I can say it. It looks great. It really does.
Well, the inspiring thing too is, like, because of the inherent way that we produce it, and because, it's shot by the owners at their location, it gives the owners and it gives the stores that participate this added sense of investment. When they can watch the finished episode, like, they can sit back and know how much of that, they poured into that episode. And I think that comes through in each episode too.
Yeah.
Like, there is a sense of passion and earnestness to it, because they're doing this themselves, and it's really cool to see. And it's a fun process on our end to take everything they send us and put it all together and have that process go from episode to episode. And the thing that you mentioned about community is really cool too, because one of the things, obviously the objective of the series was obviously to get people out there aware of these stores, and to help them out and put them on the map, and give them a showcase for their story and their location. But one of the things that's kind of come out of all of it is the community between the stores themselves. Like, because there's this kind of alumni community that's kind of sprung up since the show has premiered, and amongst like the stores that have already aired and the stores that are slated to air, like, they are now a community into themselves, and they're talking to each other more, and it's kind of just grown before us. And that, to me, is one of the most, that might be the most rewarding thing of all, is just that we're truly helping, like, weave this network of independent toy stores out there who are, again, like, there's not that cold-blooded, cutthroat sense of competition. It's all whole family. Like, we're all in this together, and we all, rise higher if we pull each other up, so that's that whole thing that's happening through the show is amazing to see.
I thought it was interesting too to see you guys include Super 7 as part of the series, being like, I mean, for a lot of us, because we don't live in that area in California, don't think of it as a store. We think of it as a toy company, like Jazzwares or NECA or Mezco, like, a small, like a more boutique one, but but they're doing big things now. And it was interesting to kind of see that perspective of like, hey, no, like that where they are now and the things that they're producing now is a result of them doing what they're doing and liking what they're doing, but opening a store. So
opening the store, yeah.
It was nice to see that different perspective of like, it's not just like a collector that was like, okay, I'm going to, I'm spending too much money. I need to make some more money, and I got to figure out, how to not buy everything on my own shelves. So it was a really interesting thing because there's not, I can't think of another toy company that actually has like a brick and mortar store that kind of is an important part of their identity too.
Right. And I mean, and then Brian and all those guys over at Super 7, they're just like the rest of us, they are as into this, to their necks as we are, they're collectors themselves, they're nerds themselves. So I think that kind of, shows itself in their store and their episode too. And, we've always been mindful since we started this thing to include, as many different kinds of stores as possible. So we have a store like Super 7, and we have a store like Wonderworks. We have stores in there that, reflect every kind of like incarnation of toy store out there.
Yeah, no, it. You know what the other thing is? You reached out, that the season 3 was coming out, when that week it came out to me, and I was like, yeah, no, I was planning on watching them. And I was doing pictures and I was doing photo reviews and stuff like that. And I'm typing and I threw on the episodes and I was just going to watch them while I was working. And I was like, I can't do it. I couldn't. It's one of those shows for me that I think you guys purposely did it very well, that it's not one that you can just, at least the first viewing, you can't watch just in the background.
There's so much to see.
So much to see. And there's a couple of them. Episodes as you guys have done between all the series that you guys have done where there's subtitles
right.
And you're like, okay, well, I really have to pay attention if I don't speak the language. So like you get grounded, you have to watch, like you have to pay attention to it. So I do have a question about the newest stuff you guys did. So I'm halfway through the season of the movies that made us. Mm-hmm. And Back to the Future is probably one of my all-time favorite. It's probably my favorite movie. Like I can watch it, never gets old, never like slog through. It feels like it flies. My question about it is, there have been so many documentaries recently between the DeLorean, rebuilding it, remodeling it, the movie itself. Bob Gale's done interviews. Was putting that together, was it hard for you guys to find an angle or the stories that would differentiate that episode from the other documentaries that have come out recently?
That's always our prime objective with that show, is to tackle those stories and those movies in a way that hasn't already been done, a dozen times over. So yeah, it's definitely the most challenging, but it's also the thing we're always most mindful of, because, a lot of these movies, they've been released with special features and things have been discussed in the past, but, our goal is always to tell a fresh story and to tell the stories of people, maybe the unsung heroes of those movies that haven't had their stories told in previous, docs or supplemental features or whatnot. So it's something that is always at the forefront of the strategy when we both plot the story we want to tell, and furthermore, even the movies we want to do. And it kind of goes back to what you mentioned about Thundercats. And again, like not ruling out that we'll never do Thundercats, right. But it's one of those things, as an example, though, it's something may sound good on paper, but the amounts, and I don't feel hesitant to say the exhaustive amount of, research and pre-research that we do on these things. We do that so we know when we go into it that we're doing it for the right reasons and we have the right story to tell. And that's not to say that story might not change once the actual, process begins and the production of the episode begins, but, something that people, have fond memories of and enjoy the toys still, the story behind it might not be something that, is worth spending an entire episode devoted to. So all of those things are factored in, and it's a lengthy process, but it's one that I think, results in a quality product at the end.
The Jurassic Park one has been fascinating to watch. Learning about how it changed, how things were done.
Right.
The idea of models versus, animation, and then I was watching something else, and the name escapes me. The model maker who was really pissed in the episode.
I mean, for that episode though, like what Steve Williams did, Spaz Williams did in the episode, like that kind of cutting edge, unprecedented work is why that episode or that movie still looks like it could have been shot last year, and it holds up so much better than a lot of the stuff that came out afterwards. Is just because of it's the incredible way they were able to fuse CGI and practicals.
Yeah, and it's stuff where I go, oh wait, I saw him on another doc, and I saw him on another, because I watched a bunch of other ones, and I'm like, oh, I recognize these names now, and like you said, it's nice to give some of the unsung heroes of these movies and films, the credit that they're due,
right,
that people don't get to hear about.
And that's kind of been one of the underlying themes of Toys That Made Us throughout all 3 seasons too, is giving all of those people who devoted their lives to making these beloved toy lines like a voice, and a chance to actually tell their story on how the stuff all came together. Because I mean, you look at movies and TV shows and album liner notes, and you have a pretty comprehensive list of what everyone did, and it wasn't like that for toys for a long time. You bought your GI Joe, you bought your He-Man figure, you flip that package over, you don't know who did the product design, you don't know who did the sculpting, you don't know who did any of the stuff, because it was all just buried and not in the public consciousness. So having that show provide all of those people, all those men and women who did so much amazing stuff, a chance for people to actually say, oh, that's the person who that's the reason I have Snake Eyes, that's the reason I have my Barbie. Like that kind of stuff is crucially important to me, and that's one of the most rewarding things about that series, is giving those people, their just due and their, accolades.
Is that, and you guys mentioned, Nacel put out a Instagram post today saying, like, if you want to see more of all this stuff, watch it. We need more ratings. We need more people watching it. We need more views. Please, do it. If you love it, do it so that, we can get more. Is the Toys That Made Us theoretically continuing? Like, are there other properties you're looking at?
They would not be a part of that call to action if it wasn't something that we would like to do. And it's one of those things where, look, if we would be happy to make these shows, as long as people are watching them, which, sounds trite, but it's true. It's like, we do what we love because, the audience out there ideally loves it too, and watches it and watches all the episodes. So, and that's just really how, a lot of things working right now, metric wise and algorithm wise. Like, people need to watch the stuff in order for, the people who greenlight the things to allow us to make more things. So that's really the long and short of it.
Yeah, no, I'm excited. I'm racking my brain going, what else could they do? Like, because you hit all the big ones, like the really, really big ones. And I'm like, what else could they do? And I'm, thinking about all the things, and I have ideas, but I still don't know, because everything else feels so modern. Like, you guys hit like the milestones that kind of took us into.
Well, in the caption, if you'll notice in the caption from our post, there are 3 lines that we mentioned in particular, 3 toy lines that, people have asked us about, since season 3, since before season 3. And, those include superheroes and Hot Wheels and Cabbage Patch Kids, which are 3 very, Mount Rushmore type, toy lines that deserve to have their story told. So, I mean, that post is a, call to action, so we can make those. And movie wise, there's more than we have time to even, talk about that are out there. So yeah, there's still some stuff in the tank for toys that we'd like to, ideally, fingers crossed, pursue.
So just, I know we're getting to the end of our time, but one of the things that came up in the panel that at Comic-Con that year was the amount of packages that you were getting daily to the office. and Brian said that his packages were starting to rival yours, or his collecting was starting to ramp up to catch up with you. Through the pandemic, did that continue for you? Was that a trend that continued, and does it continue today?
Through the pandemic, I would say that trend has not only continued, but probably increased. And I feel a lot of it is probably, just kicking the pandemic blues with a little retail therapy. But yeah, Brian and I are still very much neck and neck on packages that we have coming in. And And I have a stack building in my office here at home now that I'm just waiting to be able to actually go back into the office to display it in my workspace, because I'm getting close to max capacity here at home.
Yeah, I know the feeling. What's the what was the big one for the year, or what was the more recent like bigger thing that kind of like was like, oh my God, I finally got it?
There was there's been a few quote unquote grails that I've scratched off as of late, but I got a carded. I don't know if you're familiar with the Underworld Warriors line.
Mm-hmm.
It goes by Skull Force and a couple other names, but the Witch, I got that one carded on a Skull Force card. So that's my favorite one from that line. So that one came in not too long ago, and actually just this week, I got the Wolfman figure from the Remco American Defense line from the last series, which was the Spy series.
Okay,
it's probably one of the coolest figures Remco ever made, but it's just it's so hard to find, and been looking for it for years.
Remco's the one that did like the haunted house, right?
They did the monster play case,
yes,
and all the 3 3/4 Universal monster figures too, right?
I feel like that was like a yearly purchase for me as a kid. Like I'd break it eventually, and then my family, I'd be like, I love the Universal monsters from watching Abbott and Costello.
Absolutely.
And they'd buy me another one, and then at some point it would fall apart and it'd break, and I'd get another one. And then I recently went back to look, and I'm like, yeah, no, I can't afford an old one. Like,
it's crazy how much some of this stuff has exploded in the past 5 years, and it's funny. And my buddy Nick, who's our editor on Movies and Toys, also gets as many packages as Brian and I. We were talking, when last year, back in 2020, when the pandemic was kind of starting to take shape, we were kind of speculating as to how this was going to affect the hobby, and whether people, due to, terrible unfortunate circumstances or whatnot, were going to unload their collections, and if this is going to be bad for the hobby, if this is like what was going to happen, what were things going to look like coming out of it, and then the exact opposite happened. We have a lot of people who have some, discretionary income and nothing to do, and they're sitting at home and they're not spending their money on anything else, and they're all on eBay, and they're all occupying their time by going out and buying all the toys that they, used to play with. And so like it just caused everything to skyrocket, and it's still there. It's still going up.
One of the ones that I went after last year, and I know you guys can't talk about it yet, but Silverhawks went from like, I don't know, $90 a figure to like 300. And I lucked out last month and found somebody getting rid of some of his doubles that were like mint, not packaged, they were loose, but they were mint. And I think I spent $250 and got like 5 figures, and I was like, I don't know how I pulled that off, but you
can still get some pretty good deals here and there. It's just a matter of timing, right place at the right time. I'm curious to see how things are going to go with RoboForce now that we've acquired it, and we'll be reintroducing it soon. So everyone out there sleeping on the old RoboForce line, grab it now before they go through the roof.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time today. I really appreciate it.
Anytime, man. Thanks for having me.
It was great to have you on and hear about the projects. We'll put up links to everything. And is there any place you want people to go to or last call that you want to tell people?
Oh, yeah. I mean, please make sure to follow Toys Nacel on Instagram, and Nacel Company on Instagram, Facebook. You can find us in the same spots. Please watch Toys That Made Us and Movies That Made Us, Toy Store Near You, Behind the Attraction, Down to Earth, and all the other great shows we've got out. And we've got a lot more on the way. I cannot wait to announce some of the stuff that we've got on the horizon, but stay tuned. A lot of amazing stuff coming.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hold on one second. This podcast was brought to you by Jackson Studios. Jax!